Now, this sounds amazing, right? And I love this. And I want to go back because this is coming back to my question to you about how your weaknesses are your
Yeah,
strengths. Because I believe we all know, don't we? Life has its ups and downs.
yeah,
And though you knew no different with your disability,
yeah,
you working with teachers, coming over to England,
yeah,
I'd love to ask, if I may, up to literally dealing and growing up and coming over to another country, qualifying at Tunisia,
yeah,
and this is really related to the weaknesses, how
yeah,
that can be your strength.
yeah,
What has been the rock bottom moment? Have you
yeah.
ever been at a rock bottom moment where you think, oh God, I'm just not sure about this? Has there been that moment
Yeah.
on this journey?
So when everything I've pointed out so far, every bit of success I've had has always been to do with something related to my disability. And prior to that, what I tried to do was to hide my disability. And what I now do is embrace it. So my initial stance was, okay, I have a disability, and now let me hide it. And almost I was in denial of my disability initially. And it got to a point where if somebody um, said to me, "Oh, did you, break your leg playing football?" That would be the best compliment I ever had, because I didn't want to be identified as somebody with a disability. I wanted to pass as somebody who broke a foot.
Mm.
So that was limiting me on so many levels, and I had no idea about it. So, and that was a fight I was never ever going to win, because I had a disability, and that was that. It wasn't going to go anywhere.
Mm.
The worst moment that I can remember was uh, a few months before we basically moved from Lagos to London. I remember becoming more and more religious and going to church more and more, because I hoped that I would be healed. And therefore, when I come to London, I wouldn't need to explain to anybody what my disability was. Because I had this notion that I was going to a new setting, I was starting a new school, and then I had to explain to all these guys what polio was. Especially since I've done a research and I found that polio was eradicated in England like in the 50s or so. So
Mm.
I'm going to come, uh, eradicate in England much earlier than that, much more earlier than when I arrived.
Yeah.
So it's people who are basically in their 50s, 60s who might have polio. And here I am as a teenager, and I'm going to have to explain to my fellow classmates what polio was. And I didn't want to do that. So that was feeding into that, you know, uh, hating yourself and limiting your own potentials based on what you identify as a weakness. So what changed for me was a lot of different factors. One is when I started mixing with other people that had disabilities, and they inspired me, especially people who haven't been disabled all their lives, people whose life changed just like that. And you see them struggling with emotions, having very low moments. Uh, and I kept wondering, I don't know why you have such a dip, because I've maintained my a level, which is basically I don't like myself, and I'm going to maintain that level of I don't like myself, indefinitely, until one day I can fix it. So when I start hanging around them and talking to them, I start realizing that we're all very different, and I can see what they don't like about their current situation, and I started seeing what I didn't like about my situation, and I realized that it's only until I embrace my full self, that was only when I can actually begin to make the changes I needed. And
Yeah.
one day, yeah, one day someone, it was in East London in Walthamstow, someone said to me, I think it's not a Jehovah's Witness, but a Christian, said, I want to pray for you because God can heal you. And I said, I don't need healing. I am actually happy with myself. And I think it was when I said that out loud, that was when I started embracing myself, and I decided to be the best version of myself.
Uh,
That was the catalyst that changed everything for me.
that is really powerful, really. And I understand now what you mean more when I've read, when you say things like, my weaknesses are actually also my strengths.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
so powerful, because I think you're making a point to everyone out there who's driving for their success, who do hit rock bottom moments. We all have, especially when you're fighting towards something, be that in entertainment, business, or like yourself in sport. And it's actually reminding yourself that we are all unique, and we are all with the souls, the people we want to be.
Yeah.
And when you really start believing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and like accept who you are,
Yeah.
and making yourself the best version as you can be, like you said.
Yeah, and shine light on the same things that you think are your weaknesses, because they disappear. They actually melt away.
Yeah.
I remember I was playing wheelchair basketball with some friends after I've started mixing with more and more people who had disabilities, and seeing how and drawing strength from how they overcome their own obstacles. And that was around the same time when I broke. I ended a long-term relationship, and I wanted somehow to do what everyone else does, to go and find yourself, to travel and do stuff. And I realized that I couldn't actually travel on my own. I couldn't carry stuff. I couldn't carry my luggage with me, and etc. And I spoke to one of the guys at the wheelchair basketball, and I said, "Man, I would love to go travel. I like to just travel around. Um, I'm learning Spanish. I like to go through Spain and so on." He said, "Why can't you do it?" I said, "How am I going to carry my luggage? How am I going to do this and do that on crutches?" He said, "Why don't you get a wheelchair?" And that basically meant admitting that I am disabled, right? That meant for me then stepping back. And I thought, why don't I get a wheelchair? I said, because I don't need one. He said, clearly you need one. How else are you going to travel around if you don't get one? I said, but people who need wheelchair are people who use wheelchair full
Yeah.
time. And of course, I was wrong, because he didn't use a wheelchair full time. He could walk short distance, but not long distance. So he used wheelchair and without wheelchair. So I got a wheelchair, and that gave me all the freedom that I needed. I remember my first trip was to Madrid,
Wow.
and I went on my own. I brought a bag that fits the back of the wheelchair, so you could drag it along with you. I'll send you a picture of that actually, and that was the freest I've ever felt. And if I didn't um, give in to my so-called weakness, if I didn't shine a light on it, I would never ever have experienced that freedom.
That is fantastic, because actually you were saying, I felt I'm going backwards, but actually you realizing who you truly are and adapting and having that flexibility was actually putting you forward.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So when I say your weakness is your strength, it actually is, because you can only be the best version of yourself. And when you say it out loud, and when you take actions based on those things, it actually stops being your weakness. So today I have no issues traveling on my own to any country. And next month, for example, I'll be going to Portugal for a training camp. I'm going on my own. So I wouldn't be able to do that sort of stuff if I didn't first admit and say, okay, I have this insecurity, or I have this issue. And every problem has a solution.